we have to go back to the pastimes in Goloka Vrindavan now. The eternal pastimes of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna are going on a daily basis. Eightfold pastimes, the Astakaliya Leela. And Radha and Krishna, throughout the day and night, they carry on these pastimes in different places within the forests of Vrindavan, of Braja. So, in Goloka Vrindavan, the center where Krishna and Balaram live are here in Nandagram. And that is where the pastimes begin every day. At nighttime, Krishna is enjoying with the gopis in different kunjas and forests and by the Jamuna. They wander to different places according to the seasons. And then just before sunrise, Mangalartik is performed to wake up Radha and Krishna and to warn them, you better get home very fast. Jatila is going to wake up, Mother Yasoda is going to wake up. So they very quickly get themselves ready and they separate and they go to their different homes. 6 months out of the year, Radharani is in the home of her parents in Barsana. And 6 months out of the year, Radharani is in the home of her in-laws, just 6 kilometers from here, a village called Javat. When Radharani was married to Abhimanyu, Brishabhanu Maharaj built a beautiful palace for her there. And there the deities of Radha Radhakanta are being worshipped. So then Radha and Krishna, they quickly return to their homes. Krishna is lying in his bed and Mother Yasoda comes to wake him. And just as we have all the deity worship that we do in our temples is based on these Astakaliya Leela. So after being awoken by the Mangalartik, then the bathing, then the dressing, then the Shringararti, that's what goes on here in Nandagram. Mother Yasoda has Krishna's servants bring everything for his bathing, for his dressing. Then his friends come. And then they have wonderful, see, Radharani at one point, the gopis and Radharani, they were very attached to Krishna. And they were advised by Krishna to get the blessings of Durvasa Muni. And Durvasa Muni, if you ever go to Mathura, on the other side of the Jamuna is Durvasa Muni's ashram. And the gopis asked Krishna, well, how are we going to get across the Jamuna to get to Durvasa Muni's ashram? And he said, you just tell Jamuna that Krishna is a brahmachari, and she will let you pass. So they went to the Jamuna, Krishna is a brahmachari, benediction, Radharani got this benediction. Yashoda decided and cook for Krishna here. And she's a married girl. How is that going to happen? But because Nanda Maharaj, he was the king of all the Brijbasis, Yashoda Maharaj prayed, she begged Jatila, just let your daughter come and cook. So she would walk every day from Javat or from Barsana. They're not this road that we came on, there are other roads, shorter. She would walk every day and cook for Krishna with her assistants. They would get the water from the Pavan Sarovara, and she would cook there. And all of her assistants were assigned. Mother Yasoda would tell each of the gopis what they should cook. This is all in Govinda Lilamrita and other books. How they would cook, who would cook what, everything. And then they would, the gopis wouldn't serve Krishna. Rohini, she was in charge of serving. And Krishna with all of his friends would enjoy the prasadam that was cooked. And then it was time to go out to the herding of the cows. So Krishna Gupta Kund is the first yog pit in the Astakaliya Leela. All of the Babajis are doing their cloud with a rainbow, string of pearls, and she couldn't understand that it was Krishna coming in her. He said, no, no, that bluish cloud is Krishna's body, rainbow is his decorations, and the string of pearls, that's the string of pearls is the birds, that she thought it was white birds. So Krishna comes, and here at this place, this is where Radha and Krishna, and you see the old lotus, where the gopis and their manjaris, and then the upamanjaris, all of the eternal associates of Radha and Krishna meet for the first time in seclusion. And they have their pastimes here in secrecy. Just behind Gupta Kund is a forest. And Veera Devi, one of the Aptadutis, that's one of the expert messengers of Krishna, she's in charge of that beautiful garden. And after meeting all together, Radha and Krishna go into that garden to be together for the first time in the day because they couldn't meet all morning. Then Purnamasi, Radharani, Krishna, and Vrindadevi, and sometimes a few others, but those four, they come and meet here at Vrindakund, because this is the eternal residence of Vrindadevi. And Vrindadevi, we know she's the temple commander of Braj. She's in charge of the service of all of the living entities, every living entity, all different types, and what service they do for Krishna. It's she who bestows entrance into the eternal realm of Goloka. So she lives here. That's why we have, just at this place, her murti. So they meet at that time with Vrindadevi and decide where the pastimes will take place each day. Which grove, which kunj, who will do what, which birds will sing. Everything is decided right here at this place. And then Vrindadevi, with the help of her associates, she has on her finger one parrot. He's yellow. His name is Daksha. Daksha has 100,000 parrot disciples. When they have decided where the pastimes will take place on that day, Daksha calls his disciples, and through that communication system, the parrots fly all over Braj and inform everybody what they have to do, because parrots can talk. So they tell everyone, today Radha and Krishna are coming here, you have to get everything ready. Today you have to make this for them. Today they're going to swim here. It's all done by this communication system of the parrots coming from here. So then Krishna goes back to herd the cows with his friends, and Radharani goes to her home in Jawat to take her bath and prepare for the pastimes for the day. And then they meet according to what has been arranged during the day. So these are the significances of these two kunds, where Vrindadevi has her eternal residence, and the morning yog pit. There are 3 yog pits where Radha and Krishna meet in their Astakaliya Leela. This is the morning yog pit. The midday yog pit is at Radhakund, and the nighttime yog pit is at Vrindavan, at the Rasa Stali, where they have their rasa dance at night. So, this place, being a holy dham, is under the control of the government because it's a holy place. And when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was here, you'll see here, we'll go before that, when Krishna was here, when he left the planet, after he left the planet, because when he left, he didn't go back to Godhead alone. He took all of the Brijvasis with him, everyone. He took all the cows with him. He took all the inhabitants of Vrindavan back to Goloka Vrindavan. And there were no more residents in Vrindavan. And everything was going to get covered over by neglect. So one of the gurus here, Sandilya Rishi, he called Pariksha Maharaj and Vajranabha Maharaj, who was the son of Aniruddha, the great-grandson of Krishna. And he gave them two assignments. Pariksha Maharaj, he had to be the emperor of the world. And Vajranabha Maharaj, he had to look after Braj, because everything was going to disappear otherwise. So Vajranabha Maharaj, he had no subjects, everyone had gone, so he called Brahmins and other people from other parts of Bharatvarsha to reside here. And Sandilya Rishi told him that in all of the places of pastimes, and the wells and the kunds, wherever Krishna had his pastimes, wherever his footprints are, you have to establish temples and murtis. So Vajranabha Maharaj, he took the advice of devotees who were still here, such as Uttara and the queens. What did Krishna actually look like? And he had carved all of the original murtis, Madan Mohan, Gopinath, Govindaji, Keshavji, Dauji, all of the original murtis were carved at the time of Vajranabha Maharaj. Later, hundreds and thousands of years later, when there were invaders, these deities had to be hidden. And then they were rediscovered at the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's followers, such as Srinathji. That was the deity that was discovered by Madhavendra Puri. So all these original deities that were hidden by the pujaris were then rediscovered at the time of the Renaissance when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. So at this place, a deity was installed. That original deity is still here under the tree there. And you can see that deity. Now, when we came here, that deity was covered completely with red oxide. No one knew who that deity was. It looked like a Hanuman deity. So I got this idea that why don't we find out who we're worshiping? So I asked permission from the pujari here. Could we remove the red oxide and find out who's inside? So every Sunday I would come here, and with a piece of silver, it took years. I gradually took off all of the red oxide, and it turned out that we were worshiping Radha and Krishna with the Astasakis all around them. But at the time of the Moguls, they came, and any deities that they found, they broke off their hands, their feet, and their faces. So the deity that you'll see now doesn't have faces, doesn't have hands, doesn't have feet. And that was why the Brijbasis covered the deity with the red oxide. But once we removed the red oxide, they kept the deity as it is now. And you'll see all over, anywhere you go, you'll find these broken deities that Vajranabha Maharaj had established and later were broken by the Moguls when they came to invade. So, being the place of Vrindakund, and now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the six Goswamis who came to excavate all these places of pastimes, maps were made at that time where these places of pastimes were. And when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati started the Brajmanda Parikrama amongst the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, some of his followers, some of his disciples, amongst them was one Babaji from South India. His name was Baba Madhav Das. He decided that he wanted to reestablish the holy places around Nandagaon. Originally, there were 56 kunds all around Nandagaon. But what happened was, as the disintegration of, by the influence of Kali Yuga, the farmers, they wanted, it was all forest before, because the cows would have to walk through the forest and graze. So what the farmers did was they cut down the trees, and the kunds, they took the water out of the kunds, and they filled up the kunds with soil so that they could make fields for agriculture. So many of these kunds, out of 56 kunds, maybe 20 of them are left. And Baba Madhav Das, by studying the old maps, he could ascertain that somewhere, because it says which direction it is, how far it is from Nandagaon, somewhere is this Gupta Kund and Vrinda Kund. So he was searching the old maps, and then he was searching the municipal maps. And he found a place called Bandokor. Bandokor, just like we have the Pukur at Mayapur. It means a kund, a lake. So Bandokor, he, according to the directions of the maps and the descriptions, he realized that here must be where Vrindakund is, Bandokor. This is Bandokor. And then, according to the maps, right behind there is Gupta Kund and the garden where Radha and Krishna used to meet. So he arranged with different universities that the students would come on excursions, and they would help him to excavate these kunds. So he called all these college students, and they would come and they dug up the kunds. And when they dug up the kunds, the water started filling. So it meant that they were actually the kunds. And then, just near here, you cross the line, the state line, UP is on one side, Rajasthan's on the other side. When Aurangzeb was going to destroy the Govindaji temple, there was the original Vrindadevi deity there. And you probably all know the history that the deities were taken in bullock carts so that they wouldn't be destroyed. The bullock carts first went to Radhakund, and they stayed at Radhakund for some time, all the deities, and that's why all around Radhakund are the miniature temples of each of the deities. And then from Radhakund, they took the deities to Kamyavan, which is in Rajasthan. Kamyavan is the border of Braj. There they stayed in Kamyavan, so also you'll find the temples there. Now, when they were going to take the deities further to Jaipur, where the Maharaj of Jaipur was going to protect all of the deities, the Vrindadevi deity refused to move. And therefore, that Vrindadevi deity is still in Kamyavan. So when Baba Madhav Das wanted to establish a deity of Vrindadevi here, he went to Kamyavan. And he asked the carvers there, because in Rajasthan they do carving, that's where they do the deity carving. He asked them to make a deity of Vrindadevi. So they made a deity of Vrindadevi in old style. Old style means there's a block of of stone, and then they carve out of that stone a relief of the deity, but she's still attached to the stone. So in one hand was Daksha, the other hand was a lotus, one hand is Benedicting, and one hand has the lotus with Daksha on top. So he brought that murti here, made a little temple, and started to worship her. And of course, in order to worship a deity, you need pujari, you need a Brahmin. So there was a young man here. He was a disciple of Teen Kurori Baba, who lived at Prem Sarovara. And he was very attracted to Baba Madhav Das. So he also became the disciple of Baba Madhav Das, and his name was Bhagwat Prasad. He is the, I believe there, how many brothers are there? 5 brothers? 1, 2, 3, how many brothers? Hanshbai, yes, there he is. Correct? Abhi tak sab kuch theek hai? So he lives here, he has his home here in Nandagaon on the top of the hill. And he would come and do the puja for Vrinda Devi every day. And at that time, he had 3 sons, right? Daughter. At that time, he had 2 sons. And then he had a daughter named Vrinda. Right. Something very unfortunate happened. Baba Madhav Das, for instance, someone once asked him, where do you live? He was a Baba. He used to just live, he said, the sky is my roof. He would just wander and live under the trees. And then he came here to live at Vrindakund once the temple was built. Just a small little room was here. वो इधर रहते थे? Baba Madhav Das. Kabhi kabhi. Even then, he would just wander. He developed lung cancer from this austere life. And he knew his days were limited. Who was going to look after the Vrindakund project that he had worked now for so many years to establish? Who would continue the worship? Of course, Bhagwat Prasad would continue, always with the worship. But it takes maintenance. It was a 2.5 big space. So Bhagwat Prasad, Baba Madhav Das started going to the different main temples and asking that I have this project, I have the Vrinda Devi deity, please come and take over the project. And everywhere he went, they said the same thing. No men, no money. We don't have the men to do it, we don't have the money to do it. So one day, Bhagwat Prasad, who was a young boy at that time, newly married, he suggested to Baba Madhav Das, why don't you go to ISKCON and ask them if they will look after the project? So Baba Madhav Das came to our temple, it was 1988, and at that time Dinabandhu was the temple president. And Dinabandhu always had an interest in showing devotees the different holy places. Before Dinabandhu, we had Guru Das, and Guru Das would take the devotees all around to the holy places. He was our ISKCON Panda. And then after Guru Das left, then Dinabandhu, he took up that service. And he would go with Padmalochan, and one time, before 1988, Padmalochan had brought him to this place and shown him Vrindakund. So he was aware of this kund. So when Baba Madhav Das came to Dinabandhu and asked him, he said, I have cancer, I need someone to look after this project. Immediately, Dinabandhu said, yes, we will do it. And he came here, and small temple, small little rooms. The other disciples of Baba Madhav Das, they built a little building over here, like a guest room, although nobody was staying here. He saw it, and because it was government land, we couldn't receive it as an ISKCON project. It was government. So we made a separate trust called Vrinda Trust. And those of us who were interested in doing service here, we became members of that trust. And we were helping with the maintenance, with the boga. We would try to come here as much as possible. The first thing we did was we worked on the garden. Now it can't, I would just ask Bhagwat as soon as I came here, the first question I asked is, what are you growing? Garden. He said, well, we can't grow subjis anymore because the monkeys were coming and eating all the subjis. and we can't grow the flowers anymore. They were even eating that. Sometime during the different seasons of the flowers, they have the flowers. So all the trees that we planted at that time, they're now growing nicely. The kadamba trees, so many, we picked very nice trees, but even the fruit trees that we planted, the monkeys come. So we planted the garden, we got rid of all the sticker bushes, and people were just cursing us that now it looks like the moon. There's nothing growing here. You got rid of everything. But they didn't have the foresight to see how beautiful Vrindakund would become when you put the auspicious plants here instead of sticker bushes. So our first job was to get the garden cleaned, and we got the kunds excavated again. And then down the road here is the canal coming from the Jamuna River. So we bought a little plot of land. कितना बड़ा है? वो जो जमीन उधर बॉम्बे के पास.
Oh, one boy.
What?
One decimeter.
One?
One decimeter.
One decime.
1 decimeter.
1 decimeter. Just big enough for a little pump house we bought. And we made a pump house there, and we pumped sweet water from the Jamuna to come here, because here the water tasted just like it came from the ocean, salt water. So we brought sweet water to fill up the kunds. We made a whole drainage system. We had a pump system, everything. No electricity. We didn't want electricity, wanted everything to be natural. We built these, some college students came from America, and we started the building of these 2 little huts here, made out of cow dung and mud from the kunds. We had a little system, a little factory of mud bricks that we were making, and the thatched roof. We wanted to do everything Braj style. But then what happened was, in 1997, some dacoits came in the middle of the night, because Bhagavad Prasad and his family, at nighttime they go back to Nandagan, and we just have a chokidar stay here. So dacoits came, and it had happened once before. The dacoits came before we had this deity, and they stole the old murti of Vrindadevi. And as soon as that deity was stolen, all of the people who were the dacoits, they were getting terrible troubles in their families, so they brought the deity back. So this time when the dacoits came, they had thought that because they saw foreigners coming here, the deity must be very valuable, must be made of gold or something like that, and she was just painted over. So they stole the murti, and they took her away. They beat up the chokidar terribly. They took her away, and they scraped away the paint, and they found that it was just ordinary stone. So they threw her in one of the fields here, and the farmers found her and brought her back, but her hand, her Benedictine hand was broken off. So then she couldn't be worshipped anymore. So Bhagavad Prasad kept her at their house, and there was no murti at that time. So then we decided that we would get a new murti of Vrindadevi carved at Jaipur. We went to Jaipur, we got this beautiful murti of Vrindadevi carved, and we decided then that, well, now we're installing a new murti of Vrindadevi, why don't we make a new temple for her as well? So then we collected donations from all over the world, and we constructed this new temple. We constructed these buildings here, and on the installation day, it was the day after Trayodasi, Nityananda Trayodasi. It was the appearance day of Varaha Dev, I believe. We installed her, Varaha Mahadwarasi, the day before Nityananda Trayodasi. Varaha Mahadwarasi, 2004 या 2003 में? 2003, in 2003, we installed the deity. And the same moment that the deity was installed, Bhagavad Prasad's son had the first grandson, the first son in the family. So that meant that for 12 days they couldn't do any puja because they follow very strictly the rules. You can't do your deity worship at that day. So all of a sudden the deity had just been installed and there was no one to do the deity worship. So they had to stay at their home for 12 days. So I got to stay here for 12 days and do all the deity worship for the first 12 days until Bhagavad Prasad. They would come every day and do everything they could, but they weren't allowed to go into the altar. So I got to do all the dressing and the puja for the first 12 days, and then Bhagavad Prasad came back with his family, and they've been doing all of the worship since day one, everything. Their whole life, he has 7 sons, and all of his sons are engaged in the worship here. He's gotten them all initiated, and they take turns every month, morning, evening, like that. They're all engaged in the worship here. So Krishna sent him a lot of help. Now he and his wife, who have been doing the service all these years, they've become a little bit old, and now the sons are taking over. Their wives are also doing the cooking. So in that way, everything is going on very nicely. And during the lockdown, when Yogi Adityanath, he became the chief minister, and just as with Prime Minister Modi, we saw in Ujjain, we saw this Mahakala corridor, amazing, gigantic, this corridor that they made for Lord Shiva, all the Jyotirlingas they're doing outside of Braj. And inside of Braj, Yogi Adityanath, he's fixing up all of the holy places. So he decided to fix up Vrindakund. And he gave 3 crores of government money to excavate the kunds, to build everything you see here was built by them. All of these things, these new buildings, was all done by them. So in that way, now it's just like Svarga here. They put all of these lights, and now Bhagavad Prasad, he has many helpers in the garden and sweepers, and now they built a road that comes all the way to here. Before, we just had a gravel road that we had collected for and built, but nothing like what's here now. So Vrindadevi, by her mystic potency, by her spiritual potency, she has made this place so beautiful. And Bhagavad Prasad and his family are taking care so nicely. You see the high standard. And that's the most wonderful thing, because, once we became a little involved, ISKCON, the standard became so high, and the devotees were donating outfits and donating jewelry, and we made everything marble inside. So now it's a beautiful standard that he's maintaining with his family. Although not in the name of ISKCON, we're all very attached to this project, because we understand, what did Srila Prabhupada do? He inaugurated the Tulsi worship every day, that morning and evening the devotees should seek the blessings of Srimati Vrindadevi, Tulsi Maharani, because it's she who gives entrance into the spiritual world, and that's the arti that we sing to her, that please let me have entrance into your pastimes. So Prabhupada himself, he was very anxious to begin the worship of Tulsi and the cultivation of Tulsi outside of India. Govinda Dasi, she was the first to grow Tulsi, and then she sent seeds all over the society so that we could have Tulsi plants. I visited countries like Lithuania and all these cold countries. They're all taking care of Tulsi Maharani very beautifully because of the importance of worshiping Vrindadevi, Vrinda Maharani, Tulsi Devi. So very much a part of our culture is to worship Vrindadevi in the form of Tulsi Maharani, because in the Vrindadevi Astakam, written by Vishwanath Chakravarti. He explains that Vrindadevi herself, although Vrindadevi is one in the spiritual world, in the Radha Krishna pastimes, just like there might be one figure and you'll have so many television sets, and that one figure is shown in all the television sets. So that one Vrindadevi, here in the human society, she appears as the Tulsi Devi plant. She's already back to Godhead. She's already in the spiritual world. But in order to give us an opportunity to serve a pure devotee, she appears in human society so we can worship her and get entrance into Goloka Vrindavan. So here we have in Vrindakund the opportunity to worship her in her real form as a Murti. And we have also so many Tulsis growing here. You go over here to the corner, we have a whole Tulsi Van here. So you can pick Tulsi, you can make garlands, you can offer them to the deities. So in that way, as an extension of Prabhupada's contribution to the world, the worship of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, we're also maintaining the worship of Srimati Vrindadevi here in Vrindakund. And devotees are still maintaining. Of course, the government, they built all of this, but after that they left. And now it's the responsibility of the devotees to maintain and to help Bhagavad Prasad with the service that he's doing. So we have devotees who are collecting. Dinabandhu, he's retired now. He was every month for years and years, he was collecting 60,000 rupees a month to maintain the project here, the boga and all the workers and everything, the garden, the cleaning, the pumps, the generators, 60,000 rupees a month. But then now he has health problems and he's also traveling a lot. So now one devotee, his name is Madhava Chandra. He's taken over the collections. And if anyone is interested, of course, I'm not collecting anymore, but if anyone is interested in doing Vrindadevi Seva, I can send you on WhatsApp what type of services are required. And in that way, you can get the blessings of Srimati Vrindadevi, because this has become a very popular place for devotees to come. It's so beautifully maintained. No one will ever bother you here. There are no pandas, there are no monkeys, nothing. You just come here, you chant nicely, you take bath in the kunds, you meditate on the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and then you go back and do your services from wherever you came. So you're always welcome to come here, and Bhagavad Prasad will always welcome you with prasadam. I think that's why his name is Bhagavad Prasad. Okay, Hare Krishna. Any questions? Come forward so we can hear your question.
I want to know that what is Srimati Radharani's relation with Vrinda Devi?
Oh, Srimati's yes. Well, I was just showing Nagapatni. You have a phone? It's verse 37 in the Brahma Samhita. There's a verse in the Brahma Samhita that explains how Goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhuto. Yes, verse 37. If someone could quickly get that. Who's fastest at their phone? Yes. Okay. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. Yes. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabis. Tabirya eva nijarupa taya kalabi. Goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhuto. Govindam adipurusam tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm Goloka, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities, in the company of her confidants, Sakis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. So all of the associates of Srimati Radharani are the extensions of her spiritual form.
Yeah.
Yes. Embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. So just as we have an example of Prabhupada or any of our gurus, we're given specific instructions to do, and that becomes our service. We have to perfect it. So Srimati Vrindadevi, there's a very extensive scientific book that one can study after one masters everything that's in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, because Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is an overview of the 5 rasas that you can have with Krishna, and a general introduction to all the different ecstatic symptoms. But then Srila Rupa Goswami, being himself a Manjari, the Madhurya Ras, he wrote a very extensive scientific description of Madhurya Ras, and that's called the Ujjvala Nilamani. And in that book, he describes all of these bodily extensions, all of the different types of gopis, and all the different types of assistants, and all of those who are in Madhurya Ras exclusively. So Srimati Vrindadevi, amongst the Sakis and the gopis, there's one group. They're called the Dutis. And amongst those Dutis, Krishna has about 5, I can't remember right now, because I would have studied if I knew I had to answer this. One of his duties is his flute, because by his flute playing, he's able to call the gopis. And some of the gopis exclusively are Krishna's messengers, and some are exclusively Radharani's messengers. And they bring messages between the two of them. And they're very expert, therefore they're called Aptadutis. And of all of the Aptadutis, Vrindadevi is supreme. There's another Duti, her name is Veera Devi. So Veera Devi, she's in charge of Guptakund. And Vrindadevi, she's in charge of Vrindakund. And they have very different natures. Vrindadevi is very sweet, and Veera Devi is very harsh. Vrindadevi, she will convince Radharani by her sweetness to give up her man. And Veera Devi, she will chastise Radharani. How can you behave like this with Krishna, like that? 2 different personalities. It's not all the same. Some are angry, some are very gentle. Everyone has different personalities. And Rupa Goswami describes in immense detail the different personalities of all of these eternal direct associates of Radha and Krishna. So Radharani, when she was coronated as Vrindavaneshwari, well, she loved Vrindadevi so much that she decided to make Vrindadevi in charge of all of Vrindavan, the forest of Vrindavan. That's why it's called Vrindavan, after Vrindadevi. It's not, Prabhupada explains it, it's not the type of forest that we think with many trees. It's a forest of Tulsi, of Vrinda. And that's why she's in charge of all of the living entities who live here, because she assigns them their different services. And Vrinda Devi has many different types of assistants. She has Vanadevis. The Vanadevis are in charge of different kunjas, and they take care of those different places, and they prepare those places when Radha and Krishna are going to come there. She has the animals. She has the birds. Everything that you see here is being dictated and controlled by Srimati Vrinda Devi for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna. So she is so dear to Srimati Radharani. It's she who arranges all of the details of the Rasa Leela. It's she who arranges in each one of their pastimes, of the eightfold pastimes, who will do what, who will cook what will happen. So she is there just as Krishna will not take a single morsel of food unless the tulsi leaf is there. No pastime goes on in Braja without the presence of Srimati Vrinda Devi. So that's what's going on in the spiritual world. And here on the human platform, where we are now, we're preparing ourselves to enter into those pastimes by worshipping Tulsi Maharani, by offering Tulsi. Krishna says, you offer one leaf to me and I sell myself to that person. That's how dear Vrinda Devi is to Krishna. Okay? Fine. Any more questions? Well, he says you're all hungry. We should take prasadam now. Is prasadam here? Yes, let's go take prasadam now. Bhagavad Prasad. He's given the order. Thank you. What is this? Well, I have water. You can give it to someone else. Thank you. Thank you. All right, prasadam time. Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada ki jai.